We're now joined by Craig Drinkard, who is Executive Director of the Victoria Foundation. Good to see you, Craig.
Good to see you, Steve.
Now, I know everybody in the world of media, philanthropy, not-for-profits knows the Victoria Foundation, but for those who do not know, please share with them.
Sure. Victoria Foundation, we've been around for about 100 years, Steve. And for the last 60 plus years, we've been focusing on the city of Newark. And recently, we just went through a new strategic framework, and we have a new mission, which now calls for us to partner with Black and Brown residents and other marginalized communities in Newark and other nonprofit organizations to champion bold strategies that strengthen community power, foster economic justice, promote youth self-determination, and respond to pressing needs.
Well said. You know, again, for those of us who head up not-for-profits, we spend at least half of our time, in my case, it's a lot more than that, raising money. You know, the old expression, no money, no mission, right? So people come to the Victoria Foundation, they go to other foundations, and they're asking for money. Sometimes we beg, you know, it's part of the job. However, the model you're talking about, Craig, at the Victoria Foundation isn't simply we'll decide who should get what based on a proposal. It's more engaged with the community.
Yeah.
Give us a concrete example of that.
Sure. Well, first let me explain that most organizations, they go through a process like this, they end up with a strategic plan. They know exactly what they're going to do. What we opted for is to do a strategic framework where we have some ideas, but we want to go out and work with our partners who include the nonprofit organizations you mentioned, community residents, and other local stakeholders like the city government, county government, and other quasi-governmental agencies who are all working to address the needs, particularly in the city of Newark. So we want to go and hear from them, and not for us as a foundation to tell them what we want them to do, but to hear from them on what we should be doing in partnership with them.
What are they saying? What are you hearing back, Craig, as the most, quote, pressing issues, particularly in the city of Newark?
Well, you know, Steve, you know, that runs wide and deep. You know, you have issues such as what is really affordable housing? That's a big issue. Public safety, access to not just any job or a living wage job, but, you know, I heard someone mention this concept about having a job that has a thriving wage, right? So those are some of the key issues. You know, the well-being of families right now, you know, given the pandemic and the other challenges that we see in society, how's the mental health of our families? That's also has risen up over the last couple of years.
So, you know, people talk about poverty in a lot of different ways. Somebody's experiencing poverty, but the quote unquote root causes of poverty much deeper. Please talk about that, Craig.
Well, the root causes of poverty, you know, Steve, we got to just name it. It ties back into systemic racism and based in going back to days of slavery. When you look at the city of Newark, when you have just 23% of the homes owned by Black people in the city of Newark compared to almost 76% in the state of New Jersey, that has a big impact on poverty, has a big impact on intergenerational wealth or creating intergenerational wealth. And one of the things Victoria Foundation wants to do through some of its, you know, one of its strategies, fostering economic justice, how do we close the racial wealth gap in the city of Newark?
You know, Craig, you're born and raised as you know, born and raised in Newark, as you well know. And I always try to explain to people, well, sometimes explaining it doesn't get done. I often say to people that growing up in Newark, being born and raised in Newark, growing up in Newark, it imbues you with lots of things, good, bad, and different. But it's hard to explain to someone unless you grew up in Newark. And not that my experience is yours or yours is mine, but I've got to believe that your experience growing up in a city of Newark has influenced your view of philanthropy.
Yeah, you know, for me to sit in this role, sitting at an organization that right now we have somewhere close to $300 million in our corpus, and we end up investing about, I use the word investing, about $13 million a year in grants throughout the city of Newark. It's really amazing for me to be in this role, to go back into those same neighborhoods that I grew up in, and now work with, say, right now we're working on a project with the city of Newark, the Urban League, Invest Newark, and Greater Newark List, where we're working to identify residents that are living in the Newark Public Housing with the Housing Authority who are Section 8 renters, how we can convert those Section 8 vouchers into home ownership vouchers. So people.
Sorry for interrupting, Craig. Section 8, often people don't know, Section 8 of a federal housing law that's about affordable housing.
That's correct, right? So
Please,
the government, right? So the city has this unique opportunity, this unique program where it's taking city-owned properties, hiring local developers to completely rehab these properties, identifying Newarkers who've been long-time Section 8 renters and converting those vouchers into home ownership vouchers. And within 15 years, these renters will now be homeowners. Now we're really talking about addressing both generational poverty, creating wealth for these families, as well as creating jobs and promoting small business development in the city of Newark. And that's something that really proud of the foundation is being a part of.
It's partly personal for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm born and raised here. Steve, I'll be honest with you, I could think about 3 or 4 different instances in my life growing up. If they went a little differently, I wouldn't be sitting in this seat. So I'm very humbled by this opportunity and understand the joy that the city of Newark has bestowed upon me in this role to come and really help deliver on what I can from this perch.
This is getting really inside. What part of the city did you grow up in?
Great question. I lived most of my life in the West and the Central Ward, Steve. We moved around a lot, again, because of poverty and because of poor housing conditions. By the time I was, I think, 13, we lived in 6 different apartments. But that allowed me to create some great friends across the city of Newark and a lot of great relationships.
Yeah, and a P.S., I want to give a shout out to Irene Cooper-Bosch, who spent more than a few years leading the Victoria Foundation. Stepped down recently. You were in a co-situation, and now you are the executive director. She has done really important work, and just want to acknowledge that. Hey, Craig, thank you so much for joining us. Victoria Foundation, a great organization.
Thank you,
Craig.
Steve. All right, have a great one.
We'll be right back after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by Holy Name, Delta Dental of New Jersey, Prudential Financial, NJM Insurance Group, Operating Engineers, Local 825. NJ Best, New Jersey's 529 College Savings Plan. And by the New Jersey Education Association. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Chamber. And by NJ Biz.
Are you looking to be a part of a dynamic, forward-thinking business service organization? At the Meadowlands Chamber, every day we connect, collaborate, and innovate, helping to drive business and economic growth in the greater Meadowlands and New Jersey. I invite you to visit our Meadowlands Chamber headquarters, an open office facility with access to resources for our members' businesses and networking needs. Together, we will build the Chamber of the future and the next generation of leaders.